Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 240. Don't let your circumstances control you. You change your circumstances. Jackie Chan.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's episode is brought to you by Blackbox. Blackbox is a new platform and community that is all about financial freedom for filmmakers like you. If you join Blackbox, you will be transformed from being a worker to being a maker of your own content. And you'll be making steady passive income from the global market. Blackbox currently allows you to upload your stock footage once, get it to many global agencies, and then allows you to share that passive income stream with your collaborators. Whether you want to submit old footage that's been sitting around in your hard drives or create brand new content, Blackbox is for you. It's really quite revolutionary. With Blackbox, filmmakers can concentrate on making great content while Blackbox takes care of all the business BS. Just visit www.blackbox.global to find out more. Today's show is also sponsored by Studio Unknown. Studio Unknown is a crack team of audio post professionals known for quality sound on any indie budget. Whether you need a lush surround sound mix or a quick festival submission pass, Studio Unknown can help you with all of your post sound needs, from sound design and mix to Foley, ADR, and even a custom score. Contact Studio Unknown and mention the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, and you'll get 50% off one day of ADR or 10% off your complete post sound package. Just go to studiounknown.com. Now, today's guest is Heather Hale. She is the author of How to Work the Film and Television Markets. And it's so important if you are trying to sell your movie independently and you are an independent filmmaker to understand the film and television markets. And AFM is one of them. The Cannes film market is another one. And we talk about all the other, not only film markets, but television markets as well. A lot of filmmakers are not just creating independent films, but they're also creating independent television series and streaming series. And these television markets are where you go to sell those as well. So Heather literally wrote the book on it and how to maneuver within these markets. And I sit down and really dig in and beat her up a little bit about what we need to know about the markets and just dig in to get as much information as I could out of her for this episode. So without any further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Heather Hale. I'd like to welcome to the show Heather Hale. Thank you so much for being on the show, Heather.
It's my honor. Thanks for having me, Alex.
So before we get into it, I really want to know, how did you get into this crazy business?
Oh, gosh. People always ask your break-in story, and you probably know as well as anyone, we all have like 5. Because how many times do we have to break back in? And, you can never rest on your laurels. And so I don't even know which one,
The first one. Let's just start with the very beginning.
I don't even know what the first one is. I will say who knows? But what most people look at as my break-in was The Courage to Love, which was a Lifetime original movie. Mm-hmm. And the speed version to that was my aunt passed away. So this is a total Hollywood story. So with, dog groomers and hairdressers.
Oh, God.
My aunt passed away, and my parents became executors of her trust, and we became, we had to handle a townhouse in Pasadena. And foolishly, I didn't grab it because, I wanted to live in LA, not Pasadena.
Oh,
and
very foolishly.
I'm such an idiot. I
would have taken that and ran.
I'm an idiot. I appreciate that now. Gorgeous garden, jacuzzi. I'm an idiot. Okay, we've established I'm an idiot. Okay. So anyway, we became executives of her trust, and my parents couldn't afford to debt service that and their own mortgage and all of that. So we had to rent it out, and we had to rent it out ASAP. And so we're literally like packing up the garage of a woman who never moved in 40 some odd years while we're grieving, while we're dealing with the wake and all of that, while there's a moving truck with the other people moving in. Oh. Like, it was that crazy. So as I'm moving bankers' boxes out and the new renters are moving bankers' boxes in, one of the wife says, "Hey, I've got a great idea that would make a terrific movie. I understand you're a screenwriter." And how many times have we all heard that? Like hey, I have an idea. You do all the work and you use all your relationships and resources and we'll split the profits, and probably I'll sue you for stealing it. Like, it's just never works out. But I sat her down and I said, okay, like, I don't want to do this, but let's do it. Because I'm an idiot. We've established.
Yes.
And we literally sat there with a plate of brownies and iced tea. And I handed her a legal pad of paper and a pen. And I said, let's write a deal memo. And I want it in your handwriting, so we can't say you didn't know what this was. And we wrote out this deal memo. And I was really careful. She claimed that her son was Vanessa Williams' music producer. And how many times have we heard people say, I can get it to so-and-so, I can do this.
Yes.
So I had her put, my name is XYZ, Heather is XYZ. My son is Vanessa Williams' music producer. And she put his name in there, and I will get this script to Vanessa Williams. Like, that piece was what made me do it. And so then I told her I would mentor her and help her and support her. And she wanted to write it. And I was just going to help her as a friend from the sidelines. And so over the next 3 months, I read and read. I'm a research junkie. Most writers are voracious readers. So I knew everything about New Orleans in the 1830s. And this woman is amazing. This is the first African-American nun ordained by the Catholic Church. So it's a really powerful story. And over the 3 months, she wrote back and faxed me. This tells you how old it was.
Right.
Faxed me like 5 pages describing a room. And that's as much as she had done in 3 months. And she begged me, Heather, can you please write this? And I said, okay. And so I wrote this outline, and we got the outline to Vanessa Williams. She kept her word. She was good to her word. And then Vanessa Williams got it to Emily Gershon at William Morris at the time. And Emily called me. We had sent her a 5-page outline, which, bear in mind, was really well researched. It was historically accurate adaptation. It was a powerful story. And we sent it to her. And my associate, in her zeal and enthusiasm, I don't want to say lied, but eagerly told her, wait till you read the script. It's fantastic. And of course, there was no script.
Oh, of course.
Right? It's just an outline, just a 5-page treatment of what the beat outline was, really well written and in prose, really, really engaging, of what we were going to do.
Sure.
And so I get a call from Emily Gerson Sains, who says, I understand the script. No, I didn't get a call. I was told Emily wants to see the script. She and Vanessa are going to be at the Cannes Film Festival in 10 days. So could you send it to him?
Sure.
And it was a God moment. And I literally picked up the phone before I had time to think and quit my job.
Wow.
And I told my boyfriend, I'm not leaving this computer until I have that script done. Like, this is my break. It was scary as all get out. And I called Emily, which was very terrifying. It's like one of the first people I've ever called was like the head of William Morris, who's waiting for a script that's not written from me. And I gently said, so how firm
is that date?
Is that deadline? And she goes, oh, bless her heart. Oh, honey, it's not firm at all. I love the project. Vanessa loves the project. And Vanessa and I are going to be in Cannes at the same time, loving the project. So I'm not sure when that will occur again, when the two of us will be together interested in your project. At that moment, we will be. And so I went, okay, thanks, and got off the phone.
What?
And then I realized I didn't have 10 days. I had 9 because I had to FedEx it.
Sure.
Right? It's got to get there.
Sure.
So I literally wrote. And then I would hit print, fall asleep. My boyfriend would read. I had girlfriends, people, writers group. So I would email them the 12 pages I'd written. I would email them the 17 pages I'd written. I would sleep, and then I would wake up and I'd get back at it, and I would put in people's notes, fix all the typos, keep cranking. So I had literally copied the treatment, threw it into final draft, first script I'd ever written, and just went for it. And it got set up.
Wow.
And it aired. It was a $5.5 million feature on Lifetime in 2000. And then, I had to break in all over again. But let's call that my break.
Wow. That was the most passive aggressive way of saying the deadline is the deadline.
Right. But good for her, because it was true.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. No, and you know what?
Yeah.
But that description, for people listening, that description of how she spoke to you,
beautiful,
is exactly how people in LA talk in those positions. They'll generally
never say no.
They'll generally never say no. They're generally never there are the the Ari Golds of the world.
Mm-hmm.
There are, but a lot of them will do this kind of passive aggressive talk, and it's honestly an art form. It's an art form.
It's like on my vision board to be unflappable. And if you've listened to Shonda Rhimes' latest book, I listened to it on audio tape. I love to listen to like Tina Fey and Amy Schumer, all their books, Mindy Kaling on when they narrate on their audiobooks.
Uh-huh.
But so listening to Shonda Rhimes, which was awesome, she coined the word badassery. She said, they say it's not a word unless it's in a dictionary. Mm-hmm. But in my Microsoft Word, I right-clicked and added it to my dictionary. So it's a word. So I have like unflappable badassery on my vision board. That's my goal, is to be able to not cuss and swear, not raise my voice, not lose my temper, but say so eloquently, and maybe it's passive aggressive, but it is an art form, exactly what you mean, and still be smiling and look like you're being courteous and such a team player when you're really laying down the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. And that is an art form in this town, without question. Yeah. So let's talk about markets, film markets, television markets. That's one of your expertises.
Which it all started there, right? Because I had to get it to Cannes.
You had to get it to Cannes, exactly. Yeah. So can you explain to the audience what the difference is between film festivals and film markets? Sure.
I think that's actually one of the least understood, and even people who have been in the business forever, because you'll have people say, it's funny, I never know whether it's Cannes or Con, because I get corrected. No matter how I say it, someone's going to correct me. So they'll say they're going to Cannes, but are they going to the festival or the market? Because the festival and the market are on opposite sides of the croisette, this promenade, and they're going on at the exact same time. And people can fly around the world and realize that they have credentials. They've paid $2,000 or $3,000 in airfare, and they're at the festival when they meant to be at the market.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
And everybody they want, or worse, at least that you can probably jerry rig. But what if you're in the wrong city at the wrong week? Mm-hmm. If you meant to go to the Berlin, you meant to go to the European film market and you ended up at Berlinale, or you're at the TV markets and you're in the wrong week. And everybody you paid $3,000 or $5,000 to go see is not even there.
Wow.
And so I think it's really important. So real clearly, like festivals, we were talking about Sundance before we went live. If you think of show business, you can think of the festivals as the show and markets as the business of the entertainment industry.
Great analogy.
Because festivals are open to the public usually. They're all about audience enjoyment. They're all about the craft. They celebrate the love of the art. It can be about a specific genre or locale, and it's all about community. So film fans and TV lovers from the public can come and enjoy premieres, fun parties. They can vote, especially for audience awards. But these competitions are curated by taste-making gatekeepers, and they award prizes based on their judgment of quality. And the audience response and critical reviews is what everybody's looking for, and that's what can launch these surprise breakout hits or dash the hopes of what everyone thought was going to be a winner. And as you know, there are no prizes at markets.
No, the only prize is a check.
There's no prizes, right? And the press are often blocked from the screenings because they don't want spoilers leaked. So markets are the entertainment industry's trade shows. And like everything else in show business, They tend to be more glamorous, faster paced, and more intimidating than any other business sector. And so these markets, getting on the market floor, is typically restricted to accredited industry professionals. So you have to have bought a badge, you have to be a player to get on that floor. And then those products or content, the film and television things you might have seen shown at film festivals or television festivals, are what is bought and sold business to business, and then turned around and parlayed to the wider public. So there is this symbiotic relationship between the two circuits. So it's possible that a film that does fantastic at Sundance gets picked up by a distributor and is then sold internationally, like a cute Little Miss Sunshine is bought at Sundance, and then they turn around and sell it to Europe at the European film market. So and then the same thing can be in reverse. Maybe a product does really well at a market and they choose to use the film festival platform as their promotional marketing to create some audience awareness and create buzz. Yeah. So
it happens at Sundance every year.
Every year, Toronto Midnight Madness, you name it. So one of the things I think that helps put things in perspective is the size and scope of the material presented. So if you look at like a typical Cannes Film Festival, there's like 21 films that are in competition officially. And then right across the promenade is Le Marche du Film, which is the Cannes Film Market. And there's 3,500 films at the market. So that shows you the size and scope, because what's being sold at the market or shown or screened or viewed is literally the entire year's inventory and a backlog of the year before and what. So it's a good year to 3 years worth of assets that are competing in this incredible din of noise to try to make a blip on the radar for anyone to notice you. Like one of the most humbling experiences ever is to walk on a market floor with your little one sheet.
Oh, man. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And think, my poor baby, and I will tell you, it kicks you in the teeth and says, is your log line strong enough? Is your pitch, like you're competing with George Clooney on the market floor looking for money, right? Like that's who's there. I mean, you don't normally run into them, but they are there raising money. And so your materials have to be so not just slick and professional, but the concepts and the execution have to be so viscerally grabbing that someone's willing to risk money on them. And so it really does make you take a step back and check yourself that nobody cares about your hopes and dreams and aspirations. They care about, are you bringing them something they can make money off of?
Now, can you talk a little bit, or can you name a few of the big markets that people should look out for?
Well, of course, the Le Marche du Film is the Cannes market. The European film market is probably the second largest now. The American film market is the third. And then there's a ton of others. There's the Hong Kong Film Art. There's the Asian Film Mark. There's TIFCOM. Then Tanasur is the Latin American one. But another thing that's kind of bubbled up, which I think is really fascinating and helpful for independent filmmakers, is you have the film markets over here, and you have the film and TV markets over here, and you have film and TV festivals. Oh, and just real quickly for TV markets, you have NATP, which is the National Association of Television Program Executives. You have Real Screen. You have Kids Screen. Again, the Hong Kong Film Art is both. You have the MIPS. We call them the MIPS suites. So there's MIP TV, MIP Doc, MIP formats. And then you have like NATP in Europe. There's just a ton. Bogota has one. But in between, you've seen, I'm sure, that the independent film arena that was such at the golden era in the 1970s, people are talking about the renaissance that we're seeing and the golden era of television that we're seeing, which is really kind of the shift of independent filmmaking going to television, because we have this convergence of film and TV where what we call over-the-top television, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, these which are almost telcos, right? They're almost ISPs that are offering this, this is all the issues of net neutrality, but that is an opportunity for them to create to create content and deliver content. So in the middle, where the independent filmmaker can often get lost because the studios are doing the huge blockbusters and the networks are doing their channels, what's bubbling up is this co-production market scene. And that's where things like Cinemart in Rotterdam and the Berlinale co-pro market, which is over, like, while the European film market is going on.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
And while the Berlinale Film Festival is going on, they kind of seamlessly overlap with the Berlinale co-production market, which is where independent producers can find financing, where they can find production partners, where they can find distributors willing to see projects that are works in progress. And so here's another difference between film festivals and markets. People will tell you, as a screenwriter, never send your script out until it's just kick-ass as good as it could possibly be, right? That's it. Okay. So with films, they tell you never to submit to a festival until it's perfect, right? Because it's being judged. So a lot of people misperceive that and come over to the market space and say, oh, I can't show it to them. I can't do this because it's a market. Well, they're accustomed to seeing things with holes and placeholders, and we're going to do the special effects on this. And, they've even done studies where people had missing scenes or animation. They didn't even know that the animation wasn't there because they were so caught up emotionally in the moment. So a market, they're happy to see a talent reel for a possible reality show host or a character that we're going to build a world around in their milieu. They're accustomed to seeing, like, let's say you're shooting an independent film and you're not going to be ready by the market, but your opening sequence is awesome. You just show that as your sizzle reel or trailer or just some selected scenes. And at the market, they're professionals used to seeing products in every stage of development. So that's yet another difference that people, will come with the wrong misperceptions that limit their opportunities.
Now, who should attend markets in general? As far as filmmakers are concerned, like, should it be at what level of the process should they go?
Well, I think it depends on what your goals are and what your product is. So you will see on the NatP floor or, MIPCOM, MIPTV, on the TV markets, people who are not in the industry at all, who might have a sizzle reel on themselves often, or an idea or a concept, and they're trying to sell a game show. They're trying to sell a reality show. They're trying to sell some nonfiction thing like Adam Ruins Everything, some sort of edutainment type product. And even if all they have is a one sheet, that's a good one sheet and a good concept, they can literally, buy a badge and go pitch almost door to door. They're going suite to suite. That's another thing. This, but maybe your listeners don't. You look at something like the AFM at the Lowe's Hotel in Santa Monica, they literally move every bed out of every room and every suite becomes a sales office. So some market floors have booths like a trade show where, you go from booth to booth to booth on a market floor. NatP has these towers where you go up to the suites. And again, they've moved the beds out. So you walk in and there's the table and chairs, and there could even be cubbies set up with offices for receptionists and all that. Actually, at the Lowe's Hotel, I was one of two people sleeping there during the AFM, which was, you talk about The Shining, like take a step out into an empty hotel and you're not even like, there's no room service. There's nobody there. Right. It's just closed down. It's surreal. So that's, I think, so anyway, to answer your question, who goes? So if you're a director, you want to go over to festivals because that's where they're celebrating you. At the markets, it's largely producers. So you might be a writer producer, director producer. So if you're wearing a producer hat and you're trying to raise money or you're trying to initiate distribution interest, that's a really good place to be. Another way a lot of producers can use markets that they may not be aware of is not on the first few days, but on the last couple of days. you can go in with your really great one sheet or sizzle reel. And when the distributors have gone through the bulk of their meetings, because remember, they've paid $30,000 probably to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you show up selling them and they've paid a ton of money to sell, you're in their way.
Right.
You're in their way. But the last few days, they are thinking about the next market, and they're trying to build relationships as well. And the cocktail parties are all great opportunities for this. But let's say you come in and you've got your indie film project, you got $1 million project, and you have a hit list of 10 stars that you think are really good. It's really a good idea to take that simple bulleted list. Don't bore them. Just go in. Here's my one sheet. Here's my log line. These are the 10 stars I'm thinking of. And you might be blown away where they say, this person's not marquee value. This person will never get distribution. I like this person. This person's really good. And someone on that list you might not be aware is really huge in the brick block or the new mint. That might be something that you weren't aware was a person who would really attract the Chinese market. I'm always trying to think of the other markets. Or they may say, oh, I like all of these 8 mafioso guys, these character actors, and they're all really good. Have you thought about X, Y, Z? And they add some names to your list, and that is priceless information because and they may tell you, look, if you get any one of these people off this list, come back to me and we'll talk about a distribution. It may not be a distribution commitment because it's hard to say, yes, I will distribute your film when it's an unknown commodity.
Of course.
It's not in the can. So that's the thing is your film is probably never worth more than when it's nothing yet.
To a certain extent, you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone can imagine in their mind's eye the very best it could possibly be.
But a lot of times also, do you agree that depending on the cast,
yep,
if the cast is big enough, there will be commitments to distribute then and there purely because they know if you can afford Nicolas Cage,
yes,
the project's going to be at least a somewhat at a benchmark that I know I could sell because you're not going to hire Nicolas Cage and do a $20,000 movie.
Right. Well, yes, I agree, but I will say that there's 2 parts to that.
Sure.
One part is that if you get Nicolas Cage, like I got Vanessa Williams,
sure,
it's not you getting the money. It's probably Nicolas Cage or Nicolas Cage's contacts, resources, referrals. So one of the things I suggest people do is make their hit list for who they want as their stars or lead actors and look and see who's got a production company and go pitch to the production company of the star you want and let them be partners with you because now they're that much more financially incentivized to come on board and be a real partner. And then that's when the ball starts rolling. My dad always used to say that the most precious asset in Hollywood is momentum. Mm-hmm. It's momentum, and it's traction, getting people to have, it's making your enthusiasm contagious so that you can get some traction, so that you can create some momentum, because you can work for 10 years on a project and blow dust off of it. And if you get the right people to shine their light, man, things happen fast. That's the overnight success. So I think that is a huge part of it. And then the other part I will say is a lot of times people make their hit list and the hit list reveals a lot about you. If you have Tom Cruise and Meryl Streep on your hit list, they may be very polite because they're so polite, yes, but they're laughing at your neophytism, right? Because it's so delusional. But if you come in with some really amazing actors from, say, Breaking Bad, or you know what I mean, like
obtainable.
If you mentioned their name at your family holiday, no one else at the table who's not in the business will know who you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you show them their picture and they go, oh, yeah, I know that guy. Mm-hmm. But the difference is with a distributor, they know that the caliber, like David Morse, if you know who he is, he was in The Green Mile. He's a fantastic, or Freddie Highmore, right now in the Good Doctor. And he was in Bates Motel. Mm-hmm. So Freddie Highmore at a holiday function, the average person not in the business might go, I don't know who that is. Mm-hmm. Well, do you watch The Good Doctor? Oh, yeah, I do. Okay. That's
Bates,
what I'm talking about.
Or August Rush.
August Rush. He deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award already. I love him.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is that when you come to a distributor with someone like that, they may not be, cinema marquee value that he can open a movie by himself.
No, of course not.
But what that tells the distributor is the caliber of acting is going to attract other very strong actors. It's going to attract good directors. It's going to attract people who are that's going to raise the bar of their work.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
So if you came with a few, it's like in the old days, you needed your Sylvester Stallone or Van Damme to sell DVDs in Asia.
Sure.
Right? But it's changing. It's changing a lot. So now the mass, of YouTube competition, it's quality that rises up. And so having a good concept, well written, well executed with really good stars, I think our star culture, while it's still hugely important, you look at any advertisement, it's all about celebrity, but it's changing because of the fragmentation of the dial and what the internet has done to revolutionize our business.
So you mean Steven Seagal versus Mike Tyson is going to have problems?
Not if they're fighting.
That was the most AFM movie of this year.
Do you remember when it was a couple Emmys ago where they put all the YouTube stars on the red carpet?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so it was a couple Emmys ago, and they took all these YouTube stars with millions of followers, and they thought, oh, we're going to tap into their zeitgeist. And what you realize is asking questions on a red carpet is a skill set that Ryan Seacrest and the people who've earned the right to be there, like they didn't know who they were talking to. They were disrespectful, and they thought that their 15 minutes of fame was going to carry them on red carpet, and people forget this is a business, right? And so I think it's fine to stunt cast maybe one YouTube celeb. And if you are a YouTube celeb, then cool, that's you. But make sure you populate that cast with rock solid actors around you, because everyone in the business can see through a fame run.
And it's getting like before it was all about how many followers you have. And I think to a certain extent, a lot of casting decisions now are made on social media. If there's two actors of equal caliber, equal credits.
That's assuming they're equal caliber and equal credit.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not usually that case.
Usually not. But if you assume that they're at the same playing field, you're going to go with the one that has the bigger social following.
Absolutely. But they also have ways of assessing your digital footprint. Like I have a widget in mine. When I look on Twitter, I know how many of your followers are fake. I know how many you bought.
And that wasn't around before.
Yeah. And a huge thing is your engagement. Like, are you perceived to be authentic in your engagement with a legit tribe?
Right.
We have our mutual friend, Richard Botto, the founder of Stage 32. Sure. His crowdsourcing for filmmakers book is all about that. Like, it's being authentic to a community. So I think it's really important that people, it's really important to have a social media following and a social media presence and be authentic. But it's like anything else. It's the quality of how you do it. You can't just buy 1 million followers and slap up promotional stuff, because first of all, those 1 million followers probably aren't even real and don't care. So they're not going to leave in droves. But the real people are, if all you ever do is throw up, JPEGs of your book that you're selling. Right.
A perfect example I always use is there was this filmmaker that I was working with on a project years ago, and they spent, I'm going to say they spent like about $4,000 or $5,000 buying views of their trailer.
Yeah.
And
nothing, and we all know it now.
Right. So, but they thought that and I think it got up to about 1.5 million, 2 million views that they spent. Money, all spent.
Yeah.
Like nothing organic, no interaction, no anything. But they were touting that to distributors like, look, we've gotten 2 million hits on our trailer. Give us money for our movie. There's an audience out there for it.
Yeah.
And that might have worked in 1995.
Exactly.
But not today. And people can definitely tell when it's not hard to find out if they're fake or not. You just
Exactly.
have to look at the engagement. And
Yep.
even the engagement they're trying to fake now. And it's still so difficult to fake real engagement.
Yeah, I know someone, a very high profile author, producer, TV person. So and they've passed away and they were very beloved. So I won't throw them under the bus because that would be disrespectful.
Sure.
But they hired friends of mine to go online into the chat rooms and take on, this was way back in the day. So it is not new.
Well, you said chat rooms. So you said chat rooms.
Take on personas. So they would have 3, 4, 5 different personas each and get into debates and arguments with themselves.
Right.
Like, and be trolls and jerks and, so that other people would jump in and then they'd get out of that chat room and go start somewhere else so that there was buzz and engagement. But I think that, first of all, people are really savvy to that now. And then the flip side of that is too bad because the person who really busts their tail to get 1 million or 2 million followers legitimately and then goes to bandy that about the marketplace, now everybody's pretty jaded. And even if you earned them and spent 15 years creating that following, they're like, yeah. But that comes back to the quality of the content and the material,
And also, and I know we're going on a tangent with social media, but it's important in regards to what we're doing is also the proof is in the pudding, I'll tell you really quickly if you're real or not, purely by, I'm like, do a post.
Yeah.
Do a post and we'll see how many retweets they get or how many reactions they get and see how much traffic I can generate off of it. If it's something that's hitting too much, I'll tell you in a second, like, here you go, boom. And, so when people find people who are actually real and authentic, they gravitate to those people. To it. Absolutely.
I'll tell you something beyond the social media is also your assets, your marketing assets. So I help people create pitch packages, sizzle reels, practice their pitch and all that. And I've been a judge at, NatPea's player, TV player contest, bunch of different things. Yeah, forever. So one of them at one market, and again, I don't want to, hurt anyone's reputation. I'll just share the spirit of the story. This gal came in and she was competing and she, the first round, I think there were 3 rounds and the first round was to pitch verbally. And so this girl came in and pitched her heart out on, I think it was a mafia comedy, like a sitcom. She was so hysterical. We were like wiping tears. Though I think there were 8 or 12, I don't know, several judges. I don't remember how many judges, about 8, let's say. But we were laughing, literally slapping our knees, wiping away tears, cracking up. She had us eating out of her hand. And we loved her. We loved her project. We loved everything about her. So then she made it to the second round. And in the second round, she brought in her sizzle reel. And in her sizzle, she had spent $250,000.
No.
And she had, I don't know if it was friends or I don't know who these actors were, but in this sizzle, the production value was awful. The timing was awful. The acting was awful. The costumes were awful. And
$250,000.
And that is not the only time I've seen that. I've seen people do better with 0 budget than $250,000. I've seen lots of bad.
I'm just figuring out, how do you spend $250,000 on a sizzle reel? Like, how do you do it?
It happens all the time.
Oh my God.
So, because companies want to get paid and they, I think, prey on delusions. So, So what happened was, and I'm proud of myself, I'm not bragging, but just it's hard to find people who will tell the truth in Hollywood, and I do always and get in trouble all the time. So I will take credit when it helps. So she was going to get knocked out, and I spoke up in the voting round with her in the room and said, I got to tell you, I said, I'm going to point out the elephant in the room because everybody was giving her feedback on the sizzle reel.
Yeah.
And I said to her, and to the fellow judges, I said, look, that sizzle reel, unfortunately, you have wasted $250,000. And her face she was almost in tears.
She should be. Yeah.
She was almost in tears because everybody was ripping the sizzle reel to shreds and she was going to get knocked out of the contest and she'd spent all this money. And I said, look, I'm going to vote to put you through on the caveat that you pitch verbally again. Because you had us imagining your vision, and this sizzle reel is going to kill you. So you need to never show it to anyone again, ever. I don't care how much it cost. I don't care how much blood, sweat, and tears went into it. It's going to shoot you in the foot. It's an albatross to your project. Let it go. Consider it a mistake. And everybody changed their votes, and we put her through, and she pitched verbally, and she didn't win, but she was like number 2 or number 3, and she was really grateful. And I mean, it's heartbreaking to tell someone that, but it's true.
Oh, you've got to tell them the truth. And it's not even up for debate. It was just like, look, this was horrendous.
Yeah.
And you're hurting yourself by
but
showing
also
this.
To acknowledge how fantastic she did without even a piece of paper.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. Mm-hmm.
And that shows the integrity of the idea, her passion, her personality, her ownership and authenticity with that material. As the writer, she had earned the right to stand up and bowl us over. And it was so well executed on the page. It is not her fault that the collaborators didn't rise to the occasion, and she can find other collaborators because she owns the intellectual property. It's her baby.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, how should someone with a digital series approach a television market in today's world? Because now, as you said, everything's going towards television. How should they do a pilot? Should they just come in with the idea? Should they have a full series produced? What's your suggestion?
Well, I think all of those. Okay. It's like Hollywood. How do you break into Hollywood? Well, let's give you the 2,000 ways. We all know friends who've done it. There's no right or wrong. I will say there are probably some quicker avenues than others. And then the minute you say this is the way you do it, then there's some breakout Blair Witch success that, sure. It's just stuff that happens. Angry Orange. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I mean, there's a ton of examples of stuff, but one way they do watch, just as we were talking about earlier within social engagement, there are people who put up Twitter accounts that are in the voice or the point of view of one of their characters and then voice. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, how 8 Rules About My Daughter got done was started off a Twitter feed. It was such a unique, authentic voice. So coming up with ways to, I think it was Angry Orange was a little 2-minute thing that was an orange, literally an orange that had Marky face drawn on it.
Yes, he's done very well.
Yeah. So they were 30-second, 2-minute things, but they were so freaking funny. They went viral. And, I forget who it was, pretty famous gal. I should remember her name, but she said, viral is not a business plan.
Like Sundance is not a distribution plan.
Exactly.
Winning Sundance is not a distribution.
You cannot. That's like saying, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. Yes, somebody who buys a ticket will win. But your odds, that's not the business plan. Go ahead, throw the penny in the fountain.
I'm quitting my job today because my next year I'm covered because I'm going to do the scratch off.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I throw pennies in fountains and I'm all about superstitious little rituals. Cool. Do it. Buy your lottery tickets. All the more power to you.
Sure.
And call me if you win. Please call me.
Because I have 5 projects.
Yeah. So, but some of the things they can do, one, of course, if you're I judged the Marseille Web Fest several years back, and that was fascinating because Josh Gad.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Josh Gad won.
Olaf, right?
Yeah, he was Olaf in Beauty and the Beast, but he also had 1600 Pen, if you remember that. It was a short-lived series. Mm-hmm. So right before, with Dharma, the girl who played Dharma in Dharma and Greg, right before that, he was submitted into the Marseille Web Fest. And it was me and I think the Warner Brothers Digital VP, a bunch of really cool people. So we were, sequestered in a room for 12 hours watching nothing but websites, web series, one after another. And there were people who had fantastic business plans and ancillary marketing and merchandising. And it was so well, sales and marketing 101, or not even that, PhDs in sales and marketing. But we weren't engaged by their content. Mm-hmm. So what difference did it make, right? And then you had people who had years of seasons and seasons, hundreds of episodes. And then you had Josh Gad with 2 little 3-minute sketches that were practically SNL. And again, we're in hysterics. Mm-hmm. So I think it comes down to the quality. So if you have, let's say you have a web series that's won some awards, don't expect someone to watch 8 episodes of it. Grab the 30 seconds or 2 minutes of the very, very, very best footage. And don't feel like it needs to be 5 minutes or 7 minutes or any of that. If you have a really good 2 minutes that's a beginning, middle, and end, and there's a little bit of weak stuff, when in doubt, cut it out, cut it out, cut it out. If it is not your very, very, very best cream of the crop, they say Shakespeare threw away 95% of his stuff. I don't know how anyone knows that, but, I believe it as a writer.
Sure, and I would love to be in that trash can.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. You got to throw away, kill your babies, kill your darlings, and then only take the cream of the crop. And then that tease, you sell the sizzle, not the steak. Yep. You want to elicit their interest and intrigue them to want more. And you may not show them more. You may get into a room, they're really engaged, they have their different ideas, and you go in their direction because he who has the gold wins. Don't feel like you owe it to the material to bring in your old crap that they might not. Find what tickled them, because it might be different. Like what Spike TV is interested in is going to be quite different than what the Sci-Fi Channel is interested in.
Sure. Exactly. And that's a problem for a lot of creators, is that they spend so much time, so much money creating something. They want to show it all.
Exactly.
But it's, and you just
like baby pictures.
Right. It's your baby. You want to show baby pictures to everybody. I try not to do that, but I do it every once in a while.
That's what Pinterest is for.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, you've got to take off your creator hat and put on your business hat, put on your marketing hat, and go, okay, I got to look at this with clean eyes. And if you can't, have someone who can do it for you.
And ditto your YouTube channel. Maybe you have a YouTube channel that's got all of that on there, but you have a branded YouTube channel that only has the best of the best that represents the show, which is, you think of what you put on social media, especially what you're putting on that is projecting to the industry, is your 24/7 shingle. Don't put crap out there. And if you do, hide it in a way that only friends and family can see it. But if you're going to put it out there on your website, anywhere, it's way better to have 3 great 2-minute clips than something that's, really 2 hours of bad. That's what they say. The greatest sin in Hollywood is to be boring.
Yes. And there has been plenty of that going on at the movie theaters lately.
Yeah. And on the market floors and at the festivals and co-production markets, I used to joke that, the perfume of Hollywood is desperation.
Oh God, that's a great line. And it's so true.
Yeah.
And and because I used to wear that ode
we've all worn it. We've all
ode to desperation.
Yeah, and the deodorant, it comes out. It's the BO of Hollywood is desperation also.
I mean, it is something that you can smell on someone.
Yeah,
so fast.
Coming into the room, into a ballroom, you can smell it.
And I used to just it would just surround me. I used to spring out of me like what's his name from Charlie Brown, the guy who's always dirty.
Schleprock.
Yeah, he would just always walk
over his head.
Yeah, it was around me all the time.
Yeah.
And I would meet someone when I first got here. I would meet someone, at another level, a higher level, or just a place that I could, and I'd be like, "Hi, how you doing?" And then you would just go after them, and they could just be like, "Oh, okay, he's that," and that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
And it happened to me a bunch of times till I finally, I don't know how I did it, but naturally I just stopped it and became more giving and more of service to people I meet, trying to be.
Well, and that I think is the to me, networking is the highest form of service. It's what do they need? How can I help them? And you hope that by the time it pays forward 10 times somewhere, it comes around back to you.
Right.
But, when you're trying to intentionally network, one of the most prudent things is to ask them about them and their projects, and that's the thing you have to be careful of with you, is because when someone asks a writer about their project, oh no. Right? We love our babies. We want to talk about them. That's all we want to talk about. So you really are, it's kind of like being on a first blind date after a divorce. You don't really want to talk about your ex. Right? So you want to listen and ask questions. And if the conversation comes back around to you, be locked and loaded with a silver bullet that's really quick and easy and kills.
Right. But don't walk up with that bullet in hand just yet. Don't shoot it off.
Uzi or the the machine gun. Yeah,
Oh God.
I have one silver bullet.
It's just so funny. I was, my next question was going to be about networking. And I think we're on that topic now, but like sometimes I'll be speaking and, people will come up and they're just kind of like, you can tell that they're just wanting to, I call them energy suckers.
Even successful people.
Right. Just energy suckers. They just like want to suck.
Vampires.
Vampires. They just want to suck from you. And, as you get older and you've been in the business long enough, you become attuned to that, that frequency very quickly.
Your hair goes on end as they come up, as they approach.
Oh, and you can smell it. You can smell.
Yeah, it's the ode to desperation.
There's the ode to desperation. There's the O of BS.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. I'm not trying to do anything, but I'm just trying to impress you because I've done this, and this. I know this, and I could definitely get your project to this person because I cut their hair.
I'll tell you two quick little stories about that. I was, I'm not a vain person. We all get beat up so much. I guess you just don't have time or energy to be vain. You just got to keep working hard.
Not on this side of the camera, at least.
Yeah. So I was at an event. It was a women's event, and I was talking to a group of women. And I was a first-time director. I think I've done 2 things now, but I'm really still a rookie. I really am trying to break in as a director. So I was at this event, and I had directed $1 million feature, which on the one hand, anyone in the business knows, like soup to nuts, that's like an ultra marathon series. Like that, it's a huge accomplishment, whether it made any money or not, it cut in the can. And it got picked up by 2 distributors. It was at the AFM and
huge success.
Right. Huge. It was at Walmart, Best Buy. Okay. So who really cares if it was any good or made any money? Like that, just the fact that we got from point A to point Z and I did not die or kill anybody. Right.
Right.
So and it had Meatloaf and Ed Asner and Eddie Furlong. So I'm at this event and I'm feeling like simultaneously proud and scared shitless and insecure and blah, blah, blah. And these girls are talking about all the stuff they've directed and they're posing and dropping names and being all this. So I'm just sitting listening because I really need to network and I really need to learn a lot more and I need to expand my horizons, blah, 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 blah. Well, like an hour of listening to them give all sorts of advice and tell me what I should do. It comes around that one of them's entire directing oeuvre was a PSA.
Okay.
And the other one had done a short film. So I sat there and not that I'm all that, but I sat there respectfully listening to all. And then when they asked me what I had done, which like the event was almost over, and I was like, just $1 million feature with Meatloaf and Ed. And then I walked away because they like seriously could care less. Like I sat there, they had done a free public service announcement for 30 seconds. And that was what they directed.
Sure.
And the flip side of that I was going to say is when people are posing, if you have to get a catcher's mitt out to catch the names that they drop, odds are they're full of it. And if you call them out on it, I have 2 stories. I had a guy who told me, and I won't say who he is because he's kind of a power player, but he told me it'll be too obvious. He had directed a little movie called, and then I won't put the movie in, but it was a huge movie.
Sure.
He had line produced a little movie called, insert huge movie here.
Sure.
And I was like, oh my God, I better check my ego. And so I sucked it up and let him treat me like shit because he was a misogynist and he was awful. And then I optioned my material to him, which was a huge mistake. And then I Googled, because nowadays you can IMDb while you're in the bathroom. Like now I've learned, like, excuse me, go to the bathroom, IMDb the shit out of their lies, right?
Yeah.
But it turned out he had second unit line. Oh, no, he had told me he had produced it, but he had second unit line produced it.
Which is, he's basically, yeah.
Producer is like finding the money, soup to nutting it, and second unit line producing is someone who was hired to cut checks for a couple of days.
Not even the main line producer, the second unit producer.
Second unit line producer when he told me he had produced it. But then the third I was going to say, because it goes the other way too, is people who drive the flashy cars and have the gorgeous homes can sometimes be so so encumbered and so leased and so fake about what they're projecting as their image that they don't have the money to scrape together change out of their dash for a iced tea at a McDonald's, right?
Yep.
And sometimes you'll be with someone who's driving a beat up car and they're not in expensive shoes and they do not offer to pick up the tab that's on somebody else's expense account. And they are the person who owns 21 homes free and clear and could actually fund your film. But they're not trying to impress you and they are cheap. And the reason they're rich is because they're cheap. And that doesn't mean they won't invest in your film. So, I mean, it goes both ways.
I do find, and this is again only from years of experience, that the people who are the big loudmouths, the people who are the boasters, yes, there are those guys, you know, there are the Brett Ratners of the world that are those kind of people, you know, and do actually know these people and actually have the money and stuff. And I threw Brett out there because he deserves to be thrown out there. And I have no problem with that. But most of the times you're going to, you know, if you see the guy quiet in the room and he's in the room, first of all, or she's in the room, that means that they've done something to be in that room.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, they're not going to be the boasting guys. They're not going to be the ones dropping names. If you see Steven Soderbergh's car, he drives like a 2005 or 2008 Prius.
I think Warren Buffett does too, by the way.
Right, exactly, because they're not trying to impress anyone. They're doers and
prove. Yeah.
And they're rare in LA. They're rare in the business in general. You don't meet those people very often. Well,
to be fair, they're rare on Wall Street. They're rare in Nashville.
Absolutely. No, they're rare everywhere. And
they're rare in Vegas.
They're rare in every industry.
Yeah.
But in our business, you know, you don't meet those people. So when I do actually meet people like RB, Suzanne Lyons, who's a good friend of ours. Like you as well. People who are actually doing what they're saying they're doing and are not boasting about, hey, I've got, 300,000 followers and I have this or I have that.
The proof's in the pudding. Yeah.
I'm like, look, you just, go and look, look me up. I don't care.
Yeah.
Look, or they'll say, look, I don't want to talk about it.
And that, quite frankly, is the value to your website and social media. The more I feel like, and my website's not perfect, but I try really hard to have it project a good image. But I think that's good because you can have a conversation, give them a business card, and then they can do their due diligence on you and they can check you out after the fact. They can check your bio, they can check your credits on IMDb. And so you can just be a human being involved and engaged in the conversation and not be trying to spit out your resume. So, that's how I think you can be using your marketing and social media and those things to back you up with this 24 shingle that's out there all the time, but just be a human being and be present in those conversations.
Now, we've gone off the rails a little bit in this interview because we were talking more about markets, but this all works into the networking. It all works in. But can you throw a few insider nuggets of things that we should look for at film markets? Things that you like, I wish I would have known this doing a market before.
Well, there's so much that I wrote a book on it. So I'll tell you, that's actually the whole reason for the book was because you said you had gone to one of your first markets recently.
Yeah, AFM, yeah.
Really kind of like blown away and overwhelmed. I think anyone in this business should just get on a market floor as fast as possible because what you learn and how humbling it is will really put things in perspective for the rest of your career. So whether you sell anything, go ahead.
No, it's a product. And that was the thing I said in my review of AFM. Like, it's so humbling because they don't care about the craft. They don't care about the artistry. They don't care about, it's a product. And as soon as you understand that changes your perspective a whole lot. They don't care about your personal project. They don't care about it.
Yeah. And they're not being mean either.
No,
they're
business.
It's not even callous. They're just so matter of fact. And they can smile while they're just eviscerating you.
Absolutely.
Oh, painful.
Absolutely they can.
Because, it's art to us, but they don't care. They don't care.
Obviously, Steven Seagal and Mike Tyson, not a lot of art in that movie.
Yeah. So I will say that honestly, like, I'll tell you how the book started, and then I'll tell you a couple secrets. I was at the American Film Market in 2013. I booked all the speakers, and I was helping Focal Press come up with their their franchise line, the AFM Presents.
Sure.
And so Focal Press had said, who do you think would make a good author for one of our books or in our series, and who would be a good subject matter expert. And I was like, you need to get RB to do something on crowdsourcing. Mm-hmm. I had got him on a panel. I was like, you've got to get, nobody's talking about that. And I gave him all these names of people, and I'd gotten another friend, Anne-Marie Gillen, on the finance panel. I just really tried hard to get, some new, fresh voices that we needed to be hearing at the AFM. I was actually really proud because people told me later they opened up the full page spread in Hollywood Reporter, Daily Variety, and it had all the pictures for all the panelists. And people, at least a dozen people, wrote me privately and said, I don't know how you did it, but it was 50-50 female, male, and it was every color of skin under the sun. That's because awesome. Normally we don't see that. So I really had like my own private agenda to try to really diversify what we saw so that you weren't ghettoizing, like putting all the women on one panel because we don't need to, and you can avoid that panel, or all the people of color on one panel, and that's our diversity panel.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
But get one on every channel. That was my goal.
Good.
Anyway, so when I was helping her, I was giving her all these people that I think I got 8 or a dozen friends book deals that year. She said, well, if you come up with anything else, let us know. And I said, I can tell you right now what you're missing. And she said, what? I go, you've got the American Film Market Presents, and no one's ever written a book on how to work the markets. And her face just dropped, like, yeah, duh. It's like always the obvious that we miss. And so I said, I'll write it, and I, of course, didn't feel like I was a guru. I just knew I could research, and I reached out to at least 200 people. I did interviews for a couple years for that book. So some of the things I learned, at one AFM, I was sitting there, and I won't mention names of companies, although I will tell you privately.
Sure, no problem. I appreciate it.
Anyway, I was sitting there with a girlfriend, and we were going in to meet someone I had interviewed, because that was another thing I did. I used it to network like crazy. So then I could meet 200 people that were, international sales agents and distributors and all that, financiers and investors. So I was sitting there to meet one of the people who I'd interviewed with, and we were on the other side of this cubby wall, because, they sometimes have these temporary cubby walls, and like there's 4 feet of empty root, that the wall is not there. So on the other side was somebody pitching, and on the other side of another wall were a couple people. So there was an established distributor who was teaching a wet behind the ears rookie distributor who was new to their company of how to do what they needed to do. And I don't know how much you know about, like I do my own budgets and schedules, and I can line produce and stuff. So I don't know how much you know about this, but it hit us. But basically, when you do an independent film, you have to often do a SAG bond, right? Okay, so let's say you have $1 million film, and your budget for your actors is, let's say, $200,000. So SAG might make you put up $200,000 or $50,000, but you have to put up a bond so that if for any reason you flake out and don't pay the payroll for that week, SAG can dip into this bond. That it's a formula that they make you, that they hold the whole time. So if you need $1 million, you actually need $1.2 million, because you got to put this money up that sits there that you can't touch until you get it back. And so this distributor was explaining to the other distributor, the new distributor, how they could basically make a commission off you getting your SAG bond refunded to you if they use the wording for gross receipts into the account they were managing.
Okay.
So in other words, they're supposed to be selling your film and getting a commission from Turkey or China or, wherever they're selling it. And as those monies come in, they take 10%, 20%, whatever their commission is off the top.
Sure.
So she was teaching him how to get the bond, the savings account you raised, blood, sweat, and tears that you had sitting there to pay your actors, that when you got it back from SAG, they could take 10 to 20% of it because it passed through their account.
So let me clarify something. You're telling me that they're unscrupulous distributors in the marketplace?
Can you imagine?
Is this an exclusive?
And they were training one another down the daisy chain how to screw independent producers. So I know that's shocking.
It's absolute. I've never heard of anything like this.
Think about that. Like, you're going to take a commission off my savings account that I barely scraped together to make this film?
Is this Wall Street? What is this?
Oh, my God. And then they want us to sign a contract that says, oh, yeah, you can handle my money. I trust you.
Yes.
So those are the kinds of things. So literally during the course of writing this book, I will say, and this is probably not politically correct, but we've established I'm an idiot.
Yes.
I probably will make very little money off this, because the publisher makes 80%. You think distributors are bad. Okay. So I don't know. People are like, oh, I'll buy your book. I'm like, thanks. Like maybe I'll see 2 cents 10 years from now. I don't know. So I was so frustrated writing this book because of all that I was learning and all of that. And then I didn't even want to do it. It was 2 years of work for free. For what? Right?
I know.
But what kept me going was storytellers around the world, content creators, people who have a dream, people who have a passion, people who have a story that is so under their skin that they're working for 2 or 5 or 10 years for free, speculatively. And I thought, I got to help them. I got to help them navigate these markets. I got to help them stop being screwed. I got to help them save money. And I will tell you, this is really inappropriate, and I probably
love
will
it.
regret this.
I love
and we
it.
might need to edit it.
No, we won't.
But I was in the AFM series originally, in the franchise.
Sure.
And I was part of that. And it was always going to be that. And it was kicked out because of many of the things I said of how to save money and how to, okay, if you can't afford a badge, here's what you do.
Well, I mean, Heather, to AFM's defense here, I'm sorry, but I get that.
I get it too. And I edited it all out. You know what I mean?
But the damage was done.
The damage was done. And so the truth is, there's a lot in this book that the markets don't want you to know. And the other thing was, by the end of it, I was like, okay, here's how you work around the markets. Here's how you take everything you've learned that will work on a market floor, and here's how you DIY it. Here's how you do YouTube. Here's how you use social media. Here's how you sell, not business to business, but business to consumer, because that is the revolution that Amazon and they're still in the middle. You literally could have your own website and sell your books and your movies and your TV, if they're good enough, directly to the crowd that you're creating. Mm-hmm. So I think it was too independent and too irreverent, too real. And I have a problem with that.
No, so. I give away I give away a lead generator for, if you sign up to my email list, six tips to get into film festivals for free or cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
hate to hear it.
I got into over 600 film festivals in the course of my career, and I paid for probably less than 5% or 10% of them.
Yeah.
But sometimes that rubs film festivals the wrong way. I'm like, but guys, look, this is just the way it is.
It's such a hard business. People are like, I would volunteer for variety summits. I volunteered for everything I couldn't afford to go to. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little peon peasant with a name badge, but I get to hear the studio execs telling it like it is, to be a fly on the wall to the $5,000 a seat thing I can't get into. So one thing about independent filmmakers is we are scrappy, we are resilient, and we are pit bulls, and we need to learn to be unflappable badasses.
Now, can you say that? Can you talk? You spoke about the book a bit, but what's the name of the book, and where can they get it?
It's called How to Work the Film and TV Markets, and it's available on Amazon. It's available. It's actually at a lot of the markets. The publisher took it to the AFM, and it sold out in the first day.
I'm sure.
So. Yeah. Sure. So my website is heatherhale.com, and I will put a plug because it's not even cost them any money. But on heatherhale.com, I'm pretty sure it's / how to work the film and TV markets, is all sorts of giveaway stuff. Like it has a calendar of the markets all around the world, the co-production markets, festivals. And I'll tell you that calendar, that matrix took me forever because I had to line up what was going on simultaneously, what was an adjunct event, what was going on. Like if you're going to another country, what could you also hit while you're there? It's a really great calendar. I've got the facts on packs. So who's got housekeeping deals where. I've got them archived so you can look back who used to have a deal with what studio and what distributor. It's got so many different sets of information. So, and that's all, it's got a global map. It's got all the market statistics. It's got some great full color key art examples.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a unions low budget matrix, because if you can ever make sense of that game of Sudoku, good luck. Right. So it's heatherhale.com, how to work the film and TV markets. And it's got tons of giveaways. And then also on there, there's a 21% off on Amazon and 20% off the publishers, like a code.
Uh-huh.
So, it's going to make my 2 cents go to 1, but, have at it.
I love the honesty. It's awesome. And I'll put all of those links in the show notes for everybody.
Awesome. Thank
so
you.
I have a few questions left that I ask
Yes,
all my
sir.
guests. What advice would you give a filmmaker or screenwriter wanting to break into the business today?
Oh, can we have another hour? No. Honestly, this is going to sound really cliche and soapy, but it's so true. It's just so freaking true. And you get reminded of it every year and every decade. And that's just be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be true to yourself, be authentic, and know who your friends are, because you will learn over and over and over again who they are and who they aren't. And if you're going to be miserable working around the clock at 2 a.m, you damn well better make sure it's something worth working on.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
And I would say also, when we create film and television products or content, a lot of people, artists, hate to hear it referred to as product and content, but at the marketplace, that is what it is. It's a art over at the festivals. But whatever it is that you're creating, that you're generating, you are essentially exporting our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I would beseech you to please be careful that you're really espousing values you actually hold, not lowering to pander to the lowest common denominator of what you think you can sell, because you could have a breakout hit with something that's actually meaningful. You look at Shawshank Redemption and Groundhog Day, and there are films out there, and there's nothing wrong with entertainment, like cult hits, like there's so much good stuff out there, but do stuff you're really proud of and that really means something to you. And it's cool if it's comedy, thriller, horror, whatever it is. But even look at Aliens. Those are real horror. Like in Silence of the Lamb and The Believers, like there's some scary shit out there and it's still entertaining. So I'm not saying it has to be G-rated Disney animated.
Sure.
I'm just saying, make sure that what you're saying with your art is really what you mean, because it's easy for it to get, going through that gauntlet to get like GMO 2-headed shaped weird. It's not what you meant at all.
Right.
So, stay true to yourself, stay true to your voice. And one thing that is good about Hollywood, well, there are many, 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 many good things about Hollywood, but one of the things I love most about it is a society and a culture where everywhere you look, people are following their dreams. Mm-hmm. Everywhere. And it is exciting. It's entrepreneurs, I call them. Everywhere you look is people who passionately believe, usually, and there's scams and posers and flakes and phonies and all that. Mm-hmm. But most of the heart that beats in Hollywood is people who have a mission for something they want to say that's so under their skin that they're trying to figure out a way to say it and hold true to that. Mm-hmm. And, it's like I always say, I'm a voluptuous girl, so I'm lucky because I'm very thick-skinned, because you need a rhinoceros's skin to survive in Hollywood. But one of the hardest things is to keep your heart open and to stay responsive to the communal consciousness and to have empathy for other people's worldviews and points of views. So if you can, don't be a dick.
That should be on a T-shirt. If it's not, don't be a dick. That's like the best advice you can have in Hollywood. Don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah. Be a nice person. And that doesn't mean be a doormat. It means be an unflappable badass who can cheerfully tell the truth and be honest and be, have good intentions and write great stories, because the world needs them.
Amen. More now than ever. Can you tell me what book had the biggest impact on your life or career?
Oh boy, this is going to reveal my libertarian roots. And probably Atlas Shrugged or The Fountainhead. Those
Oh,
were
wow. Okay.
really, I know that's not an industry book, but
Sure.
it's all about Galt's Gulch.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. I got you. No problem. No problem. Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
Oh my goodness. There's so many. And I'm not sure I've learned them all.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, I'm stealing this from my dad, but I think he would allow me to. And I'll probably cry because he recently passed.
Mhm.
But you don't have to make every mistake personally.
Interesting.
And that you can surround yourself with mentors and mastermind groups and friends, and you can learn from other people's mistakes and advice. And that doesn't mean,
Yes.
you
Mhm.
don't have to make every mistake yourself.
If you're smart, you can learn from others' mistakes and
Yeah.
try. And because, I mean, why wouldn't you? Sometimes you have to learn it by sticking your hand in the fire. But if
Yeah.
enough people tell you, "Hey, I've been burned there," don't put your hand there.
And that's why you have to know who your friends are.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of people who are going to tell you, oh, don't put your hand in my cookie jar, when really you can build your own cookie jar and they shouldn't be in your kitchen. Right? You
Yes.
need to know who your friends are, because your friends, and I am very blessed to have a few who will tell you when you're being a shit, who will tell you when you're being myopic, who will tell you when you're not seeing the forest for the trees. And then there's times where, and I've had this happen many, many, many times, where, you have an email and you send it to a few friends to make sure that they vet it, to make sure it's not too emotional or you're not saying anything that could be slanderous or whatever. And sometimes you can have, and I had this happen, as a matter of fact, it's an old story I've told many times, but I wrote to Sherry Lansing once, and everybody in my circle said, no, don't send it, don't send it, don't send it. No, you'll embarrass yourself. No, you're reaching too far. No, no, no. And guess who called me? Sherry Lansing.
Really?
Right?
Now, by the way,
So-
can you tell everybody who doesn't know who Sherry is?
Oh, she was the first woman to run a studio, and she was
ran
behind
Paramount.
like Titanic, and you name, she was behind
She was a beast.
huge, like behind every successful film for like a decade and a half.
Yes.
So all I'm saying is that there are times when all your friends and fans and champions who have your best interests at heart, I'm not saying they're wrong, but they are not seeing either how big you could be or the path that you're seeing through the trees. Or sometimes, it's not a lottery ticket. Sometimes it's just luck. And you reach out and with this Sherry Lansing example, and I could give a million others, it was some connection I had that I knew she would respond to. You can see someone's Achilles heel. You have a tender spot in your heart that that thread will connect you to them. And if you authentically speak to that, and sometimes your rage, I mean, I've had, knockdown fights, not fights, but verbal, with people who I loved and adored, who we were able to come back around. Because we spoke our truth and we realized we were like kind of out of sync. Sure. And when we both heard the other person's point of view, we understood it and got it, and we got our friendship back on track. And, that could have been derailed, and it's the stronger friendship for it.
And what are 3 of your favorite films of all time?
Oh, for sure. I have to say my Groundhog Day and Shawshank Redemption.
I was going to say those two probably came.
For sure. But I'll say a couple others. One of my favorites, a little teeny film, Waking Ned Devine.
Oh, I love Waking Ned Devine.
I'm in love with Waking
that
Ned
movie.
Devine. That is one of my all-time favorites. And I'd have to say this won't be. Those would be my top 3. I'll leave it at that. Those are my top 3. Yeah.
Heather, thank you so much for sharing with the tribe and dropping some very big knowledge bombs on us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. It's my honor and my pleasure, and I hope that everyone learned something or at least had a good laugh.
Thanks. I really want to thank Heather for dropping some major knowledge bombs about film and television markets on the tribe today. And if you guys have not had the opportunity to go to a market like AFM or Cannes or MIPD or MIPCOM, definitely, if you have an opportunity, go and do it. Even if you have nothing to sell, Just go and understand, talk to people, understand the process of how independent film and independent television series are sold. And the more you understand about that process and about the business of selling your product, you will be so much more successful and get to your goals faster and faster. Trust me, I learned not only a ton with This Is Meg, but I had already learned a lot about selling movies and going through that process throughout my career. But I learned so much more just doing it with This Is Meg as well. And now in the new film, On the Corner of Ego and Desire, I'm taking all that knowledge and bringing it to that project. So the more you do, the more you learn, the better it is. And I tell you, when I went to AFM, when I've gone to Toronto at their mini market, there's so many amazing nuggets of information you can get. So please, if you have an opportunity, do it, because you will not be disappointed. If you want links to anything we spoke about in this episode, including links to Heather's book, head over to indiefilmhustle.com/240. And if you haven't already, guys, if you love the show, please head over to filmmakingpodcast.com and leave us a 5-star review. It really, really helps me out a lot, helps out the podcast a lot to get it ranked higher, to get more people to see it and listen to this information. So please just head over to filmmakingpodcast.com and leave us that 5-star review. Thank you so much. And as always, keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.